Now, Facebook and Instagram have banned Trump from the platforms indefinitely. Mark Zuckerberg says the risk of allowing Trump to continue using the social media platform is simply too great. He's accused him of using Facebook to incite violence against a democratically elected government. On Wednesday, crowds of pro-Trump protesters stormed Capitol Hill after Trump bemoaned his defeat in the 2020 U.S. presidential election. He's repeatedly claimed election fraud, despite there being no evidence of such. Twitter has also removed a number of Trump's tweets and suspended his account for 12 hours. It started with chaos and has ended with President Donald Trump promising an orderly transition of power to President-elect Joe Biden come January 20th. Thousands of Trump supporters flocked to Capitol Hill last night, protesting against the 2020 presidential election results. They listened to their president say he would never concede, that American elections were no longer free or fair. For more on what played out in Washington, we are joined by political analyst Jonathan Faull. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on eNCA. Now, of course, how much damage has this caused to the image that the world has of America being a democratic country?
It's definitely not been good, and we've seen Chinese and Russian press, among other less sterling democratic free presses, trumpeting the chaos on Capitol Hill yesterday. This was a bizarre 48 hours for the American democratic institutions. First, you had the Senate being affirmed with free and fair elections in Georgia, seemingly underpinning another transition from the Republicans to Democrats in that chamber. And then you had absolute chaos incited by a sitting president who refuses to acknowledge his defeat and participate in an orderly transition. It's been diabolical.
Now, people are calling for his impeachment so that he can never be able to lead the country again. What does this mean, really, for his legacy?
We have to wait and see. I think it's unlikely that he will be impeached. I think while there is certainly a lot of energy in some corners of the American establishment to do that, you need, in addition to the cabinet voting to impeach him, you need 2/3 of the House to affirm that. And it seems that, given the state of the current Republican Party, that probably a third of the House would remain in his corner. His legacy has been severely tarnished in the last 24 hours. A lot of people have always maintained that it's just Trump being Trump, his actions don't mean much, but this was vandalism and wholesale running roughshod across institutional traditions, institutions, and practices.
Now, of course, there's also a question about how police acted. A lot of Americans taking to social media, especially those who are part of the Black Lives Matter movement, saying that this is not ordinarily how police would have acted had those protesters been black.
There's certainly a huge difference in the way this crowd was policed to the way that Black Lives Matter protests in the summer were policed in the middle of last year. I think it is slightly complicated because Washington, D.C. is not a state. The mayor tried very hard to get the National Guard deployed to the Capitol. This was denied by the Department of Defense. To some extent, the city's hands were tied by the fact that it remains this constitutional anomaly and the mayor is not a governor. However, the facts are clear. This crowd was not policed in the same way that Black Lives Matter protests were policed in the summer. Those, in many instances, those protesters were faced unprecedented force from police and other federal agencies. And in Washington, the federal government abused their power to disperse peaceful protesters. What we saw yesterday was violent, in some cases armed protesters willing to both disrupt democratic proceedings of their elected representatives and violate the sovereignty of the legislature, and nobody seemingly was there to stop them. And there didn't seem to be any energy on the part of federal agencies to try and do that.
And now, am I correct in saying that this also speaks to the amount of work that President-elect Joe Biden needs to do in terms of, first of all, security? You wouldn't expect something like that to happen at Capitol Hill, first of all, but also about the policing in the United States and what he needs to do there to bring back confidence to the people.
Yes, I mean, policing in this country was already facing a crisis of confidence given the Black Lives Matter protests, the counter-protests on the part of Blue Lives Matters, the whole mess that this country is in when it comes to policing. That said, it's extremely complicated here. It's not like South Africa where we have one national police service. There is a multitude of police services here from the local level, even at campus level for universities, all the way up to federal bodies. So it's not something that the president can easily sort out. However, he can bring leadership and a clear, coherent voice that speaks on behalf of the American people, not a faction thereof. And he can lead the country in a process of healing. Biden's hand is changed as well in the last 48 hours in that he will now have the Senate and the House and the presidency helping to legislate this. That changes the ballgame significantly, as does Trump sullying his reputation. It seems that Trumpism will face headwinds that it did not 24 hours ago. And without his bullhorn on Twitter and seemingly indefinitely suspended from Facebook, his access, unmediated access to his supporters is now compromised. Trump, that is.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you very much. Political analyst Jonathan Faull coming to us live from the U.S. Still to come.